y'all, it's Laura and welcome to a Scrappin Happy Studio layout. This one is using a Peartree cut file. It's a collaboration between Scrappin Happy Studio and Peartree cut files. Now, if you're a regular follower of mine, you'd realize I don't have a cutting machine like this. I don't have an electronic die cutting machine, and I have found another way to use cut files. I use them as stitching templates. So I simply print out the cut file on my printer, pop it onto a piece of cardstock, and punch out my own holes using the cut file as a guide. This is a clever way to use those really cool cut files if you just don't have one of those electronic die cutting machines, but you definitely want to play with the design. Stitching is a great way to incorporate a lot of texture and a lot of dimension on your layouts without actually adding a ton of bulk. Also, you get to use the cut file, which I really enjoy cut files. I just am not willing to argue with the electronic die cutting machine. So this is the way I still get to use the pretty designs that other people make, and I get to add a little bit of fun to my layouts. Now these two photos are of my oldest son back when he was in 3rd grade. He is currently 17 and a half, if you ask him. He's going to turn 18 this summer, if you can believe that. Crazy. But here is my lovely stitching template. So now I just have these beautiful holes to fill in with some thread, and I'm going to be using this variegated thread from Doris, which has a bunch of different colors that kind of blend into each other, and then some 3371 dark brown. So using both of these two on my stitching, I'm going to do the colorful in the rock section, and I'm going to do the brown in the U section, and then I'm going to incorporate a ton of those same colors behind my photos. So I'm going to be doing most of my stitching off camera because it does take a great deal of time. Now this one actually didn't take too long. It only took me a few hours to do, and I have done some massive ones, massive stitching titles that took me multiple days, but this one only took me a few hours. Mostly because I purposely put those little holes as far apart as I thought I could get away with, and that makes for fewer stitches. So I'm going ahead and show you how I'm going to do the absolutely gorgeous chain stitch, which is simply going up through the first hole, going back down into that same hole, leaving a little loop at the top, and then coming into the second hole from the bottom, looping through that loop that you left at the top, and going back down into the second hole to create your next loop. And what this does is it creates a braided look on your stitching, which is quite detailed and very beautiful. And this can be a little bit tricky. If you miss a stitch, you will undo several stitches in the process of trying to fix it, but it's a lot of fun. It's a beautiful stitch and I really enjoy it. Now, as you can see, I'm having some trouble with my thread here, and that's because I made it too long and was too lazy to do a bunch of short threads. It's much easier to use a short thread. As you can see, look at the incredible texture on this. It's stunning. Love it. So we're going to bring in some of these printable papers and the printable collection from Scrappin Happy Studio called Teen Vibes. And I really enjoy printable collections. I use them every so often, and it's nice to have them in my computer. I just keep them sort of stashed away. I do tend to print them at least once when I first get them and try to use them up as quickly as possible because I think it's kind of fun to have a good play with them and not just to purchase them and hoard them. Just like the rest of the supplies in my stash, I really try to make a concerted effort not to hoard things. I don't think that that really benefits you personally, and it creates a bit of an overwhelm situation in your stash. The same thing is true with printable collections. Be very intentional about the collections that you purchase, and when you do purchase them, I would recommend going ahead and getting them printed. Whether you send them off to the office store to get printed, or you can print them at home on your own, I recommend going ahead and printing a set of the collection just to get yourself using it. And sure, you've got it saved in your computer so that in the future, if you do have a situation where you don't have a stash anymore, you can always use those printable collections. Now, that said, one of the reasons I always print them out is because I find printable collections are so much easier to use. Why that's true, I'm not entirely sure, and I think it's largely because most printable creators give you lots of embellishments to work with. And because those printable collections are significantly cheaper to purchase, you can get all of the embellishments. It's very easy to get all of the embellishments included. Whereas when we come to our in-person physical collections, sometimes you have to make decisions and you have to say, okay, I'm going to get the paper, but I'm only going to get like the stickers and the ephemera. I'm not going to get all of the other special things. Well, with the printable collections, quite often you can get a whole lot more embellishments for your buck. Now, you do have to print them, so keep that in mind, keep that into your monetary thought process as to how much it's going to cost you to print them. And that's important too, because if you can print them yourself, it's probably cheaper, but if you have to send them out to be professionally printed, definitely think about that and the quality that you're going to get and pay for from the office store. So keep all of that in mind. Now, I sent these out to the local office store myself and had them printed on 65-pound cardstock, which is a little bit more expensive, but for me it's worth it because the quality of the print is so much better. So I'm going to arrange these stars behind my photos just to give them a nice bit of fun behind the photos, a little bit of energy, and bring in some of the colors from the stitching at the bottom up to the top of the page. Now, as you can see, I have fussy cut a lot of things out of this collection. There was not only, I think it was 2 pages of embellishments, but there was also a circle paper that was just full of circles, and I fussy cut that out too, because I think those are really fun. I think circles are really easy to use, and I will probably do a circle layout before I put this away. Really enjoyed doing this stitching though, and I think it made for a really quick scrapping time. So once you've done all this stitching, you have this giant title on your page, there isn't really a ton more you need to do. The rest of the layout can stay fairly simple because you've put all this effort into the title. Now, this also allows me to draw a lot of attention to my photos. By keeping the layout simple, I can draw your attention straight up to the photos and nothing's drawing your attention terribly hard away from it. I am bringing in some of these little punched glitter stars because I wanted a little bit of detail work on my layout. I am a big fan of details. I think they add a whole lot to a layout, really make it feel finished and complete. And so I quite often put more effort into the detail work, into making sure things are perfectly aligned where I want them, and little tiny pieces scattered around the outside. So when I finish off a layout, I do what I call scattering and splattering. And it's more of a little rhyme for myself so that I don't forget this stage, but now I rarely forget it because I love this part. Adding all those little tiny bits and pieces are my scattering. In this case, it is these little stars, and splattering I do with both Nuvo drops and with a gold ink spray. You could also use a gold watercolor paint, that would work as well, or any color really. I just like a little bit of splattering because I think it helps to finish off the page and fill in some of the white space with just a really fine mist. So it's kind of a finishing touch around the edges, and I really, really like that effect. Now this time I'm coming in with some black Nuvo drops because I've already added a lot of gold to the page, and I decided the black would be a little bit more interesting, add a little bit more dimension and depth to the page, because there is so many bright colors and just a simple white background. So coming in with the black was a really fun way to add a little contrast to those bright colors. And then I'm going to add in a little border around the outside. Now this is a T-square ruler, and if you don't have one of these in your scrappy stash, I would recommend getting one. They're really inexpensive. You can get them off of Amazon for just a couple of dollars. They're not very expensive at all. This one's just a clear plastic one, and I use it quite often to make faux stitched borders. So what I'm going to do is go all the way around the outside with my little journaling pen here and create a border, and then I'll go back and kind of scribble in some fake little stitching lines, and it just adds a really, really nice finishing touch to the page and kind of reins everything in, especially when I've created a page like this that has kind of a wonky, crazy look to it behind my photos, all those scattered stars. I like to have a little bit of a boundary or a barrier, or in this case, a border that helps to sort of rein everything in and give it a little bit more structure. Now, something I did on accident in this one is I accidentally went slightly wonky with my line at the top and then decided to go ahead and add my stitching line there. Well, once I'd done that, I realized I really liked the way that that looked. And so I went ahead and did it on all 4 lines in different places to kind of vary the look. But it turned out so cool. bringing in my beautiful gold ink spray to splatter around the outside of my clusters, and this one will be done. I really hope you enjoyed this one, guys. Let me know what you think in the comments below, and until next time, bye!